Thanks everyone for joining us. I know the legislative site is not my favorite thing during the session, but it is our main tool when we're following bills and tracking our legislators and trying to stay in touch with them. So I'm going to give just a quick overview of the timetable, really those key benchmarks that we have with the funnel, and then talk a little bit about that outreach that we want to be doing to our legislators on both sides of the aisle. So if you click on that link here for the 91st Assembly, when you get the slides, you'll be taken to the tentative timeline for the session. And a couple of the big deadlines are March 7th and April 4th. These are when they're going to literally funnel pieces of legislation out so that they can narrow their focus and decide what gets to be voted on, what gets to have the chance to go toward the governor's desk. And so March 7th will be that day where they're supposed to have bills in both chambers, at least get voted out of their committees and then sent to before they're sent to the full chamber. If it doesn't go through committee in its chamber at this day, then technically it's supposed to be dead. On April 4th, this is the day when they're supposed to have passed the floor in the chamber where they started, and then also have gone through a committee chamber in the opposite, or a committee vote, excuse me, in the opposite chamber where it's needs to get confirmed. And so obviously things will change, modifications will be made, but one caveat is always that those finance bills, anything about money, appropriations, the budget, these are always capable to move. And a lot of times you will see those dead bills come back to life as zombies attached because it's something that they feel like they can add to a funding bill to get a policy moved forward. And so if things look confusing at times, that is often why, because someone's getting a policy priority for leadership or the governor moved through financial legislation. So in terms of getting in touch with your legislators, because obviously as things move, we want to make sure that we're giving the folks that are doing the right thing the numbers saying, this is my story, this is my view, and I hope that you're voting with me on this issue. We want to give them that collateral to say, these my constituents want me to vote against this. And anytime you have anecdotes, it's really helpful to add those to your outreach. But when you go to the legislative page, legis.iowa.gov, you can click on a few different ways to get in touch with them. If you click on senators, it's going to take you to just the Senate list. And even when you're here, you can kind of toggle back and forth between one chamber or the other, or you can look at them all together at the same time. You can filter them by party. But if you wanted to reach out to Senator Liz Bennet, you would see her name in this list in alphabetical order. And you can obviously you can resort that in different ways, toggling across the top here as well. But you can click on that email address, copy and paste it, and Senator Bennet and or her clerk will see that and be able to review it and get back to you. And please remember that our clerks are amazing and they do incredible jobs to support their very busy legislators, and the clerks themselves are very busy. So they are dedicated to checking those, and really love seeing those anecdotes, because oftentimes you'll see legislators use a story on the floor. And don't be worried about them using your name, because I've never seen anyone use their name. If they wanted to, it's usually generalized, but if they wanted to, I'm sure they would reach out and ask first. But those personal stories about how something affects you or could affect you are really helpful for them in making the case to vote for or against pieces of legislation. When you click on their name and kind of check out their committees and more information about them, you can find their phone number on this next page that still has their email and things like that. This is a good spot to figure out what committees they're on, what bills they've introduced, and what amendments and floor time they're using to speak out on issues. And also check out, this is in the other pages too, but their districts. let me see here. I think when you are on this page, a few things you want to do that I think are really helpful for our legislators is you want to sign up for their newsletters. These are really nice digests of what's gone on in the legislature, and oftentimes they send these weekly. It's going to help you get a layman's term, oftentimes explanation of how the floor went that week. And without getting in the weeds, the legislators are usually pretty good about explaining things at a high level and in really applicable terms. And then the other piece you're going to be clicking on is this additional information, because when you do that, you can hook up with their social media and subscribe to their Facebook, their X, Twitter, their Instagram, and potentially Threads if folks are adding that. It's really helpful for them to have those clicks and have those follows. Even if you don't check your social media a lot, it will help push your network toward them and push them toward your network so that they're getting more and more followers. If you followed Sarah Trungariot last year or in past sessions, you'll know that she's really good about giving you play-by-plays for the floor. So that's another reason to follow these guys, because you're going to oftentimes get really quick information on what is happening on the floor. And with that, I believe I am passing it to Jen.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. Another way to contact legislators is to call using the switchboard, and that you can find in the contacts bar, which is within that black bar along the bottom of the website. And once you click that, you can see the Senate switchboard, the House switchboard. You can look for your senator and your representative there, as well as some other helpful links within that. And we've heard from at least some legislators that while they do appreciate phone calls, they also appreciate the electronic record of email. So that is another way to contact them. Email them is instead of or in addition to in-person visits and phone calls. Keep it short, make it personal, mention that you live in their district, provide some context about the issues and the bills that you are reaching out about, and consider CCing a ranking member of the minority party so that they too have a record of your concerns. And keep this in mind when you're writing, that you can also use that writing as a base for other forms like letters to the editor and op-eds. And I think I'll turn it over to Ivy next for committees and schedules.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, so gonna go over committees and schedules. Obviously, session hasn't started yet, but it starts Monday, so things will start ramping up quick. So to find information on these, it's in the handy committees and schedules tab. I think it's the fourth tab on at the top of the page on the legislature's website. So once you go there and you want to find committee information, a reason you might want to find out committee information is if you want to email those legislators. Let's say you hear that a wild bill is going through education committee and you want to email them, this is where you're going to find who is in charge of that. So you'll click on committees and schedules. Standing committees will pop up for the Senate and the House, so you'll have the option of which one to choose. Then you'll just choose which one you want. You can hover over it to see who all is in that committee, but you can also click on it and it'll show you each member, who the ranking member is, and then the committee information. So what their meetings are, their agendas, and then it'll also show you the bills that are going through that committee as well. So this will be important as we get into session, but if we go to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about finding the schedule as well. It'll be under the committees and schedules tab, but on the left-hand side, you'll just click meetings, the second option there. You'll click on that and then you'll see standing committees and subcommittees on bills. I would suggest just clicking daily on either the House or Senate. Once you click on that, if you go to the next page, it'll show you what all of those committees and subcommittees are. You can click once you're there if you want to see both Senate and House, and if you want to see committees and subcommittees, it'll give you all those options. And so once you click on that, you'll see the date and the time of each of these committees and subcommittees, what the bills are. They'll all be hyperlinked so you can find more information about the bill in particular that you'd like. But then you can also see which committee it is, which location it's at. And then there's also this very handy button with the public comments next to each bill. So this is going to be important before subcommittees occur. You can make public comments before the subcommittee starts. This is so important to hold our legislators accountable and to show in reports, in social media, in articles online, who the legislators are working for if they go against the public comments. So it's really important to share those. But obviously, it can be tough to keep up with this. So just remember that I would say to subscribe to our high five emails just by signing up with Progress Iowa. That and there will try to alert you when those important subcommittees are coming up. But I'd also say to follow a lot of our great partners. I think Dean put in the chat for Iowa House Democrats, they send out newsletters. So definitely follow there. I know Interfaith Alliance of Iowa sends out great emails and social media posts, keeping you up to date on all of this. So I definitely follow them and other partners as well. But going to our next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about Progress Iowa's legislative schedule. This is just a page that we added last year with the help of Todd Brady. Basically, it's just the Iowa legislative schedule, but on our site, we try to make it a little bit clearer. If you're having trouble with the legislature's website, all you do to find it is you go to progressiowa.org and you click Take Action, and then this Iowa legislature schedule will appear. Click Take Action there. And then if you go to the next slide, it'll show you what that looks like. What it's going to do is just show you all of the committees and subcommittees for that day, or you can click the month view as well. You can also, so it'll show you that information. And once you click on whichever committee you'd like, it'll say what the time of that is, who's participating in that meeting, and more information like that, like where it is. But other things that you can find on this page as well, you can click on all of the committee names. It'll say committee name in the upper right-hand corner with the drop-down menu for select. Then it'll say all of the House committees, all of the Senate committees, and you can go through there. But also, if you want to search for specific committees or specific legislators, what you can do is there's that little search bar on the left-hand side. You can just click, you can just type in, let's say you want to find out more about education committees and subcommittees. You could just type in education. Those will pop up. Maybe you want to see what your legislator is doing for that day, which committees they're involved in. You can type in their name and those should pop up for you as well. So that's just another tool. But if you did miss any of this, this is recorded. We'll send this out after, and we're also sending out the slides. So hopefully that'll be helpful. But now I'm going to pass it on over to Amy to talk about using your voice this session, which is going to be especially important. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ivy, and thanks to Katie and Jen as well for sharing that great information. Using your voice commenting on a bill. So like Ivy mentioned, there's an opportunity for public comments. We encourage people to follow legislation that's important to them. We encourage you to make those public comments in that legislative process. And Katie, if you want to go to the next slide. Thank you. The other way that you can share your voice is to show up in person. And oftentimes you see individuals who show up to speak at these committee hearings. They try to alternate so that they have someone who's for it and someone who is against it. If you've ever listened, you don't have to be an expert on this. Your personal lived experience is a great resource, and it qualifies you to be able to speak on this. So if you are going to show up for a committee hearing, I would encourage you to show up early just because these can be really crowded. And one of the tactics that Republican lawmakers sometimes use is they'll have a very, very popular, or I should say unpopular bill, and they put it in like the tiniest hearing room, like the tiniest room at the Capitol, because they don't want a whole lot of folks in there. And so it's very crowded and congested in the room and then outside. But if you do want to speak, please show up early. Know the rules. Know if you need to sign up in advance for a public hearing. If it's a subcommittee, you can sign up on the spot. Um, know what you want to say. Write your comments down. You can have that in front of you. You don't have to have it memorized. You can take it in. You can read off of it. I believe it's 2 minutes they give you to speak. So you do need to speak succinctly, and you do need to be clear and quick in your message. But craft your message ahead of time. Make sure, again, that you go in, you're prepared, you know what you want to say. It's helpful if you have somebody who can go with you. Number one, for moral support. So you have somebody there who's a cheerleader and on your side. But also, that person can record a video of you. I've had a number of friends who've spoken at committee hearings, and they'll then take that video and post it on Facebook or another social media platform, just so people can see what sorts of things are being commented on at these hearings. And the other thing is just be persistent, follow up afterwards, email your legislator, email the committee chairs, email the ranking members, and just make sure that you're continuing to talk about this bill and use your voice to be an advocate either for or in opposition to whatever that legislation happens to be. And then crafting your message. You want to make sure that you introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, what part of the state you're from. People do pay attention to that. They want to know who you are a constituent of. Tell them why you're there. You're asking them to vote for, support, or oppose. One of the things to be careful of is, as the legislative process moves, the numbers of the bills will often move. And if there are bills over a similar topic in the House and the Senate, they'll have different numbers on them. So it's important to say what that bill specifically is, like school vouchers or an abortion ban or something like that. So they know what the topic of the bill is, which of course, they're in the hearing, so they should know it. But you don't have to use the numbers, but just the topic of what it is that you're talking about. That personal story is so important. Your lived experience makes you an expert. Thank them for listening, and then make sure you say, why this issue is important to you, and ask them what you want them to do, to oppose it, to support it, and then, ask them to support you, your family, your child, whoever you might be there speaking on behalf, or yourself. And then again, follow up, follow up, follow up, and then tell them, I'll be in contact with you after this. Any additional tips to go along with this? Just remember, when you're commenting on a bill, whether it's in that committee hearing or whether it is in the public comments, legislation can move fast. You do not have to be an expert on every single issue. Choose the things that you care about. Choose the things that you're passionate about. Maybe it's education, maybe it's reproductive justice, maybe it's LGBTQ rights, maybe it's clean air, clean water, clean soil. So find those issues that you're passionate about and follow that legislation. It is oftentimes, like they say, drinking out of a fire hose. You just can't deal with all of the stuff because it comes so quickly and there's just so much of it. So choose those issues that are really important to you, and the ones that you care about. Contact organizations that monitor those issues. Ivy mentioned this. If you live around Polk County, if you live in a surrounding area, be prepared to visit the Capitol on short notice. Folks who live 3 and 4 hours away don't have the option to do that. But if you live close by and you can be there to show support or show opposition to something, be prepared to do that, and recruit friends and others to go along with you. And then just remember who you're talking to. If you see a reporter, feel free to talk to a reporter who's outside of the committee hearing room. Share your story with that person. If you see other legislators, talk to them. So think about who it is that you're talking to. And then if you do get a recording, share that video with everyone. You can share it with us at Progress Iowa, and we will help you get that video out in front of other people, and amplify your message on that particular topic. And one more. Okay. So the Iowa legislative process. I don't have a really great song to go along with this, like how a bill becomes a law. It can be a little convoluted at times and a little frustrating. What happens is legislators request a bill to be drafted by the LSA, the Legislative Services Agency. This is a nonpartisan entity. They draft the bill. This bill is then assigned a number and it's sent to the leadership of the chamber in which it was introduced. So if it's introduced in the House, it will go to the leadership in the House. That bill then is decided if they want to put it in a subcommittee. So then it is assigned to a subcommittee. That subcommittee leader then decides if they want to give that bill a hearing. So if they want to do that, then they will have a hearing. They'll vote on it, and then if it advances, it'll go to the full committee. One of the things I want you to keep in mind as we approach this legislative session is you might see a lot of really great bills that are proposed by certain individuals. And the legislative makeup right now is one that the House and the Senate have a supermajority. And the leaders of these committees are all Republicans. If there is a really great piece of legislation that is introduced and they don't want to bring it up in a committee, right now they're the ones who have the authority to do that. So when we're talking about commenting on legislation, if you hear of a bill that's being introduced by someone, and I'm just going to throw this out there, maybe it's raising the minimum wage and you support that, that's when you have to speak up maybe before the process and say, you know, this should be given a committee. This should be given a hearing. Like, you know, this is something Iowans support, and you can advocate for that legislation even if it hasn't made it to the committee process. So the majority party has a bit of an advantage here because they get to choose what goes into those subcommittees and what they deem they want to move forward. So the subcommittee, if it passes, and it goes to the full committee. There's a hearing, a vote is held. You'll see different changes maybe along the way. They might add something or take something out of it. And then the bill and any amendments will go to the floor. And then that's when they'll have their debate. They vote to either move it forward or, you know, I can't imagine they would bring it to the floor if they didn't have the votes to pass it. Sometimes that happens. But usually they have the votes, they'll bring it to the floor, and then it moves over to the other chamber. So if it started in the House and it moves over to the Senate, and then they start that process all over again. Once there are two matching bills, they have identical language, it passed the House, it passed the Senate, then it goes to the governor, and she either signs it or she vetoes it. Sometimes you'll see two bills that are similar. One will start in the House and one will pass in the Senate. So if they have something they really want to move quickly, they'll introduce those almost identical bills and they'll start the process in both chambers to try to get that through quickly because it's part of the governor's agenda or something that they really want to pass. So I think I pass it over to Ivy next.
Yep, thanks. So just gonna go over a few more things, particularly about following a bill, and then I'll go over a little bit about, I saw a comment about how to observe floor debate, so I'll go over that as well. So to follow a bill, what you're going to do is you're going to click the legislation tab up at the top, and then you'll just click the hyperlink for bill book. That's where all of that information that you're going to want is going to be. So once you click on that, we'll go to the next slide, and it'll have two options for you. You can either put in the name of the bill. For the name, it would be like HSB 1 for House Study Bill 1, SF 123, things like that. This is only obviously if you know the name of the bill. We'll go into how to find it if you don't. But if you do, you put that in, you click go on this left-hand side, and then under it, the bill history will pop up. It'll tell you when the subcommittee might be for this bill, what the amendments are, things like that. Can we go back? Sorry. But if you don't know the name, then you can type in under name, it says keyword. Then you can put in the keyword that you'd like to help you find it. So now we'll go to the next slide. So after you put in the keyword, let's say you wanted to look up vouchers. They called it education savings accounts. So you could write in education savings, and then the legislation would pop up over on the right. A few different bills may pop up with different descriptions, so you might have to sift through to find which one it is. Obviously, if you're not sure, feel free to reach out to Progress Iowa. We can try to help, or other trusted organizations. And then next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the live floor debate, how to find that. This one's actually pretty easy. Something that's easy on the legislature website. Woohoo! Um, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the Iowa Legislature logo to get to the homepage. It should just be on the homepage. And then right there, it'll say currently in the Senate on the left, and then currently in the House on the right. And then right under it, it'll say live. All you have to do is click on the live tab, and then it will take you straight to the live video. But if you're looking for a video that already occurred, a debate that already occurred, you can go to Daily Archives, which on the next slide, it's circled and it'll show you to click there if you're looking for past debate as well. So once you click Daily Archives, if we go to the next slide, it will show you the different dates that debates occurred, and it'll show you how long the debate was and how many views it had. It sadly doesn't tell you, what exact video you might be looking for. So there's going to be some work behind it by either clicking on the date and time and looking through the video, or something that could be especially helpful is looking at the views. The higher number of views, the more likely it is that it was a very important bill, which is likely what you're there for. So that's a tip I try to go by as well. And then once you click on whichever video you'd like, if we go to the next slide, it'll show you the video, but over on the right, it'll also show you the legislation that was discussed. So it can kind of help you see which point of the video you might want to look for as well. So that's how to follow a bill and to look at the live debate. But I also, real quick, I just saw a question before about how do you find the committee's video? To do that, what you're going to do is, we talked a little bit earlier about that committees and schedules tab. If you click that and then click meetings, the meetings will pop up. And then if they're having if they'll have a video on it, it usually, like, you click the arrow to go down, or it'll have the little camera icon and you'll go there. That's usually where it'll be if they have a video for that. But yeah, now I'll pass it on over to Amy for journals and votes. Thanks.
Thank you, Ivy. And to kind of go back to Sherry's question, if I'm remembering correctly, there are two different systems. I believe the House uses WebEx, and I think the Senate uses Zoom. And Dean, you can come off mute and tell me I'm wrong. But there are two different systems that the chambers use if you want to watch one of those meetings. So just keeping that in mind. Journals and votes. So how we keep track of what has happened in the legislature is there are daily journals. So a record of the votes posted on the legislative website is going to occur under floor votes by bill. You can search the bill date, you can search by subject like Ivy showed you. You can scroll through the bills that have already been voted on this session. And once you find that bill, you can click on Vote PDF, and then you can see the roll call for that particular bill. So if you're wondering how your representative voted, your senator voted, all of that is documented, and you can look at these different journals, and you can look at those votes by chamber, and you can see by people who voted for it, people who voted against it, and then it also shows you if somebody was excused or was absent or didn't vote on a particular bill. So during the state legislative session, both the House and the Senate publish a daily journal. On that daily journal, you can see what is coming up for the committees. You can see what's coming up for the subcommittees. You can see what is eligible for floor debate. It will tell you when they have it scheduled. So like when the soonest it could go to the floor for debate would be. And then it has links to the different bills, and then you can click on those and you can see what those different pieces of legislation are. It also tells you when there's debate, who introduced an amendment, if that amendment failed, if it was supported, and then how you can see track the bill and the changes in the legislative website. Yeah, okay. So yeah, Dean said the House side is WebEx and he's not sure about the Senate. I think the Senate is Zoom. I'm not positive on that, but I think it is. Next slide, Katie. So why it's important to be involved. And I've seen a couple of things in the comments about people maybe not listening, or people, you know, if they know they don't need your vote. At the end of the day, you know, we are all constituents, right? And we have things that we care about. We have, you know, things that we're passionate about, and we are responsible to stand up for those things. You know, we have to show up and hold our makers accountable. I've seen on a number of news articles that some folks believe that because they're in the majority party, they have a mandate to do whatever they want to. It's up to us to stand up and show them that they do not have a mandate, that there are people who oppose this, and there are people in Iowa who don't support, you know, some of these bad things, or there are progressive values that we want to see passed. We want to see them act on in the state legislative session. So it's really important to show up. It's really important to tell these stories, contact them, whether it's email, phone calls, in person, attend legislative forums, coffees, you know, League of Women Voters, Farm Bureau. There's a lot of different entities that hold these. So show up, ask questions in person, talk to your lawmakers. Tell them what you support, tell them what you oppose. So it isn't just the governor, right? She can't do this on her own. She needs the House and the Senate to pass this legislation. So it's important for us to try to slow this down, or stop it, or try to get again the progressive values, the progressive legislation that we'd like to see passed. So talking about progressive policies that we want to see passed, and just working to make a difference. We may not see the change tomorrow, we may not see it next week, but we want to keep building momentum so that we do have that long-term change. And I think that's the last slide. Is that right?